Three, two, one. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Heroes 3 Hebrew Heroes Shalosh Birvit. And we have the dear Paul Romero, the famous composer, with us in the studio today. Hello, Paul. Shalom. כן, 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 גיבורים וגיבורות, אתם רואים נכון, זהו פול רומרו האמריקאי, האיש שהתפרסם בזכות סדרת משחקי הירוז of Might and Magic, מלחין דגול, שכולנו אוהבים את היצירות שלו, בין אם זה הירוז of Might and Magic 3, 4, 6, את כולם הוא עשה, הוא עבד על סדרת המשחקים מהראשון ועד האחרון. היום הוא הולך לעבוד על המשחק החדש שיוצא ב-2025, כמובן ששאלתי אותו, תחכו לתשובה. אנחנו דיברנו על הרבה מאוד נושאים, על הלחנה לגיימינג, הלחנה לקולנוע, דיברנו על מוזיקה קלאסית, על מלחינים שהוא גדל עליהם, השראה, יהיו פה הרבה מאוד נושאים ממש 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 כיפים. השיחה באנגלית כל אחת, אתם מוזמנים בכיף גם ללחוץ על הכפתור ה-CC, אם בא לכם, יוטיוב מתרגם די טוב את השיחה לתמליל, וזהו, תפתחו את האוזניים, תהנו מהרעיון, ואנחנו נתראה תכף בסופו. Bam! The dear Paul Romero, the famous composer, with us in the studio today. Hello, Paul. Shalom.
Shalom. Hello, Daniel. Thank you for talking with me today.
This is so exciting to talk with Paul, who was the famous composer behind not only Heroes 3, but also Heroes 4 and Heroes 2 and Heroes 1. We have some of the viewers who played this installment as well. So we will talk about music. We will talk about Heroes, of course, and about gaming, composing, cinema, etc. But if you can, like within 1 minute or two, share with us some details about the work, the progress. I'm always thinking about how the hell in 1995 and even earlier than that did you manage to go with a producer in one room and work about and work on the game that made that was so famous. The music sounds beautiful, the melodies are great. How can you do it 1995 even earlier? Take us to the process, please, Paul.
Okay, so I met Rob King at a party, and he found out that I was a classical musician by training since I was 3 years old, and he told me he was a sound producer for this gaming company, and he just one day he calls me and he says, "You know what? We need music that sounds like it's from a long time ago, and so can you do that?" I said, "Sure." Like, well, what is it? How long ago? Like 100 years, 200 years, 300 years? But the reason why I was asking him is because the music that I was trained in as a child, all throughout up to college, was probably the music over the last 400 years of Western music, particularly keyboard music, from Scarlatti and Lully all the way Beethoven, Chopin, Rachmaninoff, up to Menotti, up to the 20th century. So we had to have a context of where to go with that. So he said, I went to his apartment. He had a little tiny keyboard like this, but maybe like this big, only like this size,
right?
And a little tiny old computer. And he goes, well. So we went through different styles of music, like Vivaldi, Scarlatti, Handel, Bach. And I was playing for him music by these composers, and he goes, "Yeah, that sounds about right. That seems like that era would fit better than like the Beethoven era or Mozart era, or let's say Ravel or Rachmaninoff. Those weren't even old enough. We needed to push it back to music that." Language would be like in the 17th century. So he was asking me, what kind of instruments do you need to have artificial instruments on the keyboard that would sound correct? So I said, well, we definitely need a harpsichord because that would have been the instrument of the era. We need to have horns, basic woodwinds, clarinet, oboe, flute, piccolo. You definitely have a timpani. They had timpanis in the 16th and 17th century. Definitely needed it was like a handful of instruments, maybe like only like 30 or so instruments that you have to put up on the computer. Kind of like what you're seeing here. You see all these different. These are hundreds of instruments. So back then we would only have maybe this many right here. but I have a whole thing. I have like 300, I have 350 instruments here. Anyway, so but with Baroque music for that first Heroes soundtrack, it was enough to give a flavor of the Baroque era.
I see.
And it matched because if those images and those animations are very three-dimensional, very two-dimensional, where one two-dimensional in the first game, all worked very, very well. As the soundtracks, as that one became a hit, and then we got asked to do another one, and then another one. His technology in his sound system increased. His library of better sounds of instruments got higher and higher. So this way, I was able to change the soundtracks between one and two. Now in two, we started adding live choirs and live musicians.
Nice.
By the time we did three, I didn't even need to use live soloists or choirs anymore or opera singers because our orchestral library was so good that I actually could mimic a full symphonic orchestra, like a 21st century full symphony orchestra with everything on it. I didn't even need anybody real on that soundtrack.
God bless technology, mate. God bless.
So it's kind of funny as the time went on, our pursuit of more and more real sounding instruments increased. So our orchestral library increased, but also my ability as a composer increased. So it's kind of interesting. The first soundtrack started off in the 17th, 8th century sound, and then the second one kind of pushed it up to 18th century, early 19th century. The third one was definitely 19th century. It was definitely, if you didn't know who wrote that music, you would say this music has to be written somewhere between 1890 up until maybe 1930. It's every influence of the Heroes 3 soundtrack is within that era. But that's because the orchestras grew to such a dynamic level by the late 19th century. Mussorgsky, Rimsky-Korsakov, you have Tchaikovsky, you have Prokofiev, Stravinsky, Rachmaninoff, Ravel, Debussy. That's that whole era of the full kind of what we still use now. We haven't really increased the orchestra since that era. So the orchestra as we know it today has been in place for a minimum of 100 years. So anyway, that's kind of how our technology increased, my ability as a composer increased, the century of the influences got higher from the 17th, 18th, 19th, the earliest 20th century as the games progressed.
Right. And I understand that Rob, was he sitting nearby and he gave you some guidance on what he wanted?
Here's me with my headphones on, and then here's Rob right here on his rig with his headphones. And occasionally he takes the headphones off and he turns around and is listening to my music. And he's like, that's too slow. Or that's not the right feeling. Or you need to make this less boring. Or less sad. Or whatever. So we were back to back. And he was just turning around, always monitoring me. And then besides that, he was saying, you're working too slow. He was a great guide, but also he knew that I was lingering in my details because I have ADD, and so I would spend an extra amount of time making sure the piccolo part was just perfect. I would record it over and over and over and over again. You would probably hear that in the tower theme in Heroes 3. Very high particular woodwinds in there, but one the piccolo, I worked very hard to make that piccolo sound like a real piccolo player.
Yeah, it sounded high pitch, really, really high
very
pitch.
High, yeah, but exactly the way a piccolo player would play it, even with being a little bit faster, a little bit slow behind the beat to kind of show excitement or exhaustion.
Right.
Because if you're playing a passage and you have to take a breath, you're going to be late as the next phrase starts. So you have to record that on the keyboard to mimic exactly the physical limitations of a player. So particularly the tower theme, I worked very hard to give a lot of realism to that one. And I don't know if people know what a click track is, but a click track is the computer is going like this, and you play all
with the same tempo.
Um, sorry, you're never off. But on the tower theme and a lot of the tunes, I didn't use a click track. I
Wow.
just I just sort of free fell. I would start by doing the string part and then adding the
Mhm.
woodwinds or the the percussion or the pizzicatos one by one, but I never use a click track. I would have to really, really listen to make sure as I added each part, it was
Right. And you have Rob on the other side going
because
like,
why are you
okay,
doing it that way? Because that just takes so. He goes, dude, that's taking so much longer for you to do it that way. Why don't you just do it the normal way and use a click track, and then everything will line up, and then you can quantize it. But I
right.
hate quantizing because quantizing makes it unnaturally all the notes be precisely together.
Yeah.
But when you're in a real orchestra, that's not how it is. Anybody who knows classical music or has ever played with a real orchestra knows
Mhm.
you cannot the piano and the violins cannot be exactly precise as the French horns who are so far away from you, you can't get them precisely on the beat.
Let's see.
It'll sound together in the auditorium, but in real life they're always a little bit off because by the time the conductor goes at downbeat, when you play a horn, it takes a moment for the sound to press through, so you're already late. So,
Mhm.
but the strings are very precise; they're right on the beat, and the strings are right next to the conductor, so they actually can see the beat even before the.
Yeah.
So they have all these different details based on the logistics and also the way the instrument is actually played in real life. So you have to take all that into consideration when you're making a recording that's trying to duplicate a real sounding orchestra. So for that particularly Heroes 3, I took an extra amount of time, much to the annoyance of Rob King.
Yeah, but but it ended up really amazing. Right. So it's the everlasting battle between you as a composer, taking each and every minute you can to work on it, and the other side wants to quantize,
because
wants to.
he's working with a client.
Right,
So
right.
because
Yes.
Rob King is usually the head of audio, which means not just the music production, but also the voiceovers, sound effects too.
Sound effects, yes.
So I am his employee. I am not the employee of a computer game. I am
Got
his
it.
employee as he is my producer. So yeah, so he is having to answer to the client like, why is this music taking too
By the
long?
way, so here's a question for you that I didn't think of. Um, for any casual day, what would you like to do? Would you like to just go to the big piano and play it around for a couple of hours, or would you like to think about the new, short melody with a structure for 3.5 minutes, for the new, gaming project that you have?
No, but I go to the piano and I just let my mind go free and I just
Mhm.
start like this one. But I have a piano, so this one, the melody of this one was. So I have to kind of feel it on the piano first. If it doesn't sound good on the piano, then it probably no. If it sounds good on the piano, then it will probably sound good once I orchestrate it.
I see.
But I find it doesn't really necessarily work the other way around. So I can do something that has a lot of percussion, a lot of percussive noises and patterns and stuff like that. That are already built into a lot of these programs. You can get you just push a note and all of a sudden you have all this music that's coming out of the computer. For like, so I try not to work that way. I try to work in the way that, like in the way like great pieces of music, like Fur-Elise or Claire de Lune, or even like that's just a little harpsichord. These little pieces of music, you can then blow them up into full orchestrations, and they will sound beautiful. but can you do it the other way around to reduce them to their very basics? So I find it easier if I start with the basics and making sure it's a strong melody, really good, interesting harmonies that move and cause tension and relaxation and excitement, and that cause sort of an emotional perfume. Then I feel okay. Then the materials is actually pretty good material. Now I can start to really flesh it out and begin to orchestrate it. And so I like to I like to make sure the music always has a melody. So if I can't sing along with my music or just hum along, then I feel like I'm missing something. I'm missing an actual melody, which is what I love about Beethoven symphonies. If anybody ever listens to Beethoven symphonies, they're very, even though when some of them are really really fast and really dramatic, you can always sing along to it. You can
Yeah,
sing
it's catchy.
entirely of it. Yeah, because there's always a thread of melody that's guiding you all the way through. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a tour guide showing you, I don't know, showing you the Niagara Falls or showing you all those mountains in China.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a hard time seeing it by yourself because you don't know where to go. So having the tour guide guide you, you're gonna probably have a better experience. So I kind of find that with music too. If I have a melody that you can kind of hum along with throughout the piece, it'll be a better experience.
And this there is a proof that what you say truly happens, because players like me who play um, for around 20 years or so, and for the past few years I play almost daily, and I actually, it's like moving, because you shift from the map into the adventure map into the battle, and then the percussion and drums start, so you're already in the zone. For some of the guys that I know, they took their children and they said, listen, if you think about melodies from the forest or melodies from the dungeon, or the place of death, because we don't say necropolis here. It's like it's not a known word for a non-Heroes 3 player. So what I mean is that they play it to them and they say, this is what music of the forest should be like, and this music is very intensive in terms of what probably hell will sound like, etc. So I truly believe that you could take music for the gaming, and as you say, you could like squeeze it in a good way, and turn it into a 3 minute long melody that recognizes ourselves with the situation. We understand that right now we're in the dungeon castle playing around. So this is something that is very distinct in terms of Heroes 3. And I know, I talk with a lot of Heroes players, and also with a lot of Heroes players who are actually, I have a very good friend who plays the trumpet. I have a good friend that both of us know who is a guitar player and piano player. So all of us that know music, we understand that this game, one of its strong strengths is that the score and the soundtrack that goes with it, it actually sounds like, this is the music that will probably accommodate me when I, walk through the forest.
That's
Yes.
cool. It's very funny about the one thing about the Necropolis theme in Heroes 3.
Hmm.
Uh, the one feeling I had at the time was that even though things are dead,
Okay.
they're not dead because the energy transfers to something else. But
Yeah.
I knew that as a kid because I used to go to Disneyland as a kid.
Hmm.
My parents would always take me on the haunted house ride.
I
So the
see.
haunted house ride, it's fun. It moves very
Hmm.
quickly, and so many things happening in the cemeteries. There's people popping out of the graves, and it was a kind of a fun thing for me as a kid. Because of the haunted house in Disneyland, going there as a kid a lot, I was never afraid of going to cemeteries, and I was never
Hmm.
afraid of going to funerals because I think early on I had this visual from Disneyland uh, that dead people, the energy still lives on. So so as a result of the necropolis, I wanted to make it very energetic in
I see.
parts.
Yes, yes,
Where,
yes, it is energetic.
just like it has to almost like a dance, like it just still moving. So whether you're dead or alive, you're gonna have energy. Or maybe if you didn't have too much energy when you were alive, you're not gonna have too much when you're dead either.
Yeah, this is gold. All right. I'm thinking about the, follow-up question. I interviewed several weeks ago a very good friend of mine. She's Ukrainian, and she was the head designer for the Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game. I guess that you
Oh,
heard about the board
really?
game. Yes. One of the questions was, by the way, she is like myself, she plays Heroes for maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And she draws amazingly, and they actually hired her for the Heroes of Might and Magic board game. And my question for her was, what's your favorite faction to draw and to play, to illustrate and to play? So my question for you, Paul, is which faction did you like, in terms of making their melodies and music, or if you played from, here and there, what's your favorite, faction?
Um, well, I'm gonna just assume that means like the melody, right? Like of
Right.
which section. So I like it's um it's this one. I forgot what that one is. That one, and I like the tower.
So romantic.
That one, I like this one. Those are ones I like a lot for some reason. They're very peaceful.
Yes, yes, this is nice. By the way, I'm a very big fan of Tower. All the Israeli community knows me as the big fan of this faction. So thank you for playing that.
Oh,
I have,
this one. I think, no, but this is Heroes. I'm sorry, this is Heroes 2. But
okay, let's go, of course.
uh, I like that one. I think it's Heroes 2 or Heroes 4.
I believe it's two, but we're in midst of the interview, so maybe I'm forgetting that out. So yeah, that's great. Moving on to the next question, and I believe there are a few of us who are very intrigued about it. So we're having this interview September 2024, and we've just heard about Ubisoft together with Unfrozen releasing the new Heroes of Magic game. Of course, I follow you, on social media. So you said that Ubisoft is to decide who is going to work with them, etc. But as a very big composer for this community and overall for gaming, so are you thrilled about the new game coming along? All of us are hoping that you'll take the project, but we understand that this is for Ubisoft to decide. But let me hear your thoughts about this, new game coming around.
Well, no. So we were approached about the game in springtime, or no? I'm sorry. I think it was May or June.
Okay, a couple of
Um,
months ago, we see.
yeah,
Okay.
a couple of months ago, and so they needed the music in a pretty short period of time.
Mhm.
My producer Rob was about to tear down his house and rebuild it, and there was just we know we're not doing the project. We couldn't do the project. It was several factors. One of them was just time, because we weren't going to be able to even begin until, like, maybe even now. Like, I would have had to start. I would have been my starting time would have been now,
Yeah.
and it was going to be too much music. And the only way that you can really do that, to give up your whole life, that means Rob would have to really put all of his other work on
Mhm.
hold. And he's really busy as a VO director. He works in some of the world's biggest games as a VO director.
Nice.
You can't shut down those jobs just to do a soundtrack if they couldn't match our budget, because basically it was going to cost us to do the music.
Mhm.
You know,
I see.
we would have ended up like losing money to do it. So we kind of had to make that decision. So okay, we can't. We're just not able to do it. So we did talk about it, and they don't have a really big budget for this particular project. So
Mhm.
it's better that they go with somebody young, somebody who um, problem is when you get to a certain point in your career and you have your career, it's like your career pays for your life. And if your life is kind of a little more expensive of a life, you have to have a bigger paycheck.
I understand
So
completely.
if you're like when I was starting the first Heroes, I was only paid $400 for the first soundtrack, and
Mhm.
so that was a lot of money to me when I was like 29 years old.
Yeah.
So uh, yeah, so that's it's just where we're at. So it wasn't going to work out, and they couldn't make it work out because they just don't have that kind of budget to throw at and I understand that you have a limitation. So
Yeah.
we're not going to be on that game, and it's too bad. It would have been fun, but it's just there are just too many real life things that would
I,
have to take
I
place.
totally understand. And from my end, I was expecting to hear something similar just out of the time, efforts alone, because they have, or if you were hired, you would have only what, I don't know, 8 good months
Well, the
to
thing is,
work on it.
they've been in the development for this for 4 years.
But
So
only now they thought about,
and now,
composing
yeah,
and
now
soundtrack.
they need the music by November. It's like, okay, now we're coming at the very end and at a time of our personal lives where too many things are going on. And if you can't make the budget that you're offering, oh yeah, we'll pay you whatever. You make us a priority, then it can't happen, unfortunately.
רגע, שנייה, לפני שאנחנו עוברים לנושא הבא, הייתי חייב להכניס את הקטע הזה בעריכה. הדבר הזה קרה אמיתי לחלוטין. עשיתי את הרעיון עם פול, דיברנו על הכל, מן הסתם גם על המשחק Heroes of Magic Golden Era, האם הם השתתפו בו, כן או לא, הבנו שלא, ואז, אתם יודעים, סיימנו את הרעיון, המשכתי לענייניי, אמיתי לגמרי, כמה ימים אחרי זה אני מקבל הודעה מפול במסנג'ר, והוא כותב לי, תקשיב, יוביסופט חזרו לדבר איתנו, ואולי אנחנו כן נצטרף לפרויקט. אני ממש ממש אשמח להצטרף, כי אני מאוד אוהב את הפרנצ'ייז ואת המשחק, כמובן זה הדדי, אנחנו מאוד אוהבים אותו ונשמח שהוא יעשה את המוזיקה. זהו, בזה זה נחתם, אנחנו לא יודעים אם זה הולך לקרות כן או לא. היום אנחנו באזור אמצע ספטמבר 2024, את הראיון עשיתי כאמור בתחילת ספטמבר, ואז ממש כמה ימים אחרי זה הוא כתב לי, זה הטיימליין. מה יקרה בהמשך, אנחנו לא יודעים, יכול להיות שהם כן יסתרפו, יכול להיות שלא. אני מעדכן על הדברים האלה בדרך כלל בטוויטר, של הירוז 3 בעברית, מה שנקרא X. אז זהו, עוד חוזר למועד, וכשאני אדע מה חדש, אני בקשר עם פול, אני אעדכן על זה. יאללה, חוזרים לראיון, בום!
And I thought about asking them this. I said, well, why don't you let me just work with a composer on, I'll just come up with the melody on the piano, and then they can then orchestrate it. So this way it's very easy on my part, but then they can do all of the technical work. Because orchestration is like sewing by hand. Every single note has to be sewn on like by me and then edited out by my producer. So you're looking at millions and millions and millions of notes that are one by one to make this fantastic outfit. And so, you know, in the future, I can come in and do the actual sketch of the idea, and then somebody else can then. Actually, I have a friend who does that for Danny Elfman. He's Danny. Do you know Danny Elfman, the composer?
Yeah, I believe that I heard his name, but he works for features, right? Like films.
Yeah, he does the movies. Yeah, he does all the music for Tim Burton.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But Danny Elfman doesn't know how to read or write music.
Nah, you're kidding. Come on.
No. What he knows how to do is play the piano. So he'll play the piano, like he'll just and then that will go over to my friend, who then orchestrates it for the orchestra, and then it goes to another person who conducts a recording session, and then it gets put into the movie. So Danny Elfman's process is at the very beginning of it. He does a creative part, and then there's a whole team that does the technical part, the orchestration and stuff like that.
Quite a process.
Even for me, like sometimes when if I have to do a concert tour someplace, this is kind of funny. So let's say I not currently, but I used to go on tour to Russia, and we had a whole team there, and I had my own orchestrator there.
Oh, okay.
The reason why we had their own orchestrator is because this way, the touring company that was presenting these concerts, they owned these orchestrations. It's still my music, but it's better that they own these orchestrations rather than them borrowing it from me. So if they were loaning my orchestrations out from me or from another orchestra, every time they do these concerts, they're going to have to get permission.
Yeah, I see.
I told them ahead of time, it's better that you guys create your own orchestrations. I mean, it's my music, and then I will come and play along with you guys and the conductor. And this way you guys can always keep those orchestrations. Yeah. Nobody else will ever have them. And so then when I was going to play in some other country that hates Russia, they go, what orchestrations can we use? I go, well, I have orchestrations in Russia. I have some orchestrations in Poland, orchestrations in Belarus. So what I was getting is like, oh no, we can't use those orchestrations. They're coming from the wrong country. This is all the same music. But so what I'm finding that it's better that each country has their own orchestration. So now Ukraine has their own orchestrations. When I toured Ukraine, and they include Ukrainian instruments. Then Belarus has their own, the Philippines has their own, Russia has their own, Poland has their own. So it's kind of better. When I go to a country, I will go and I will learn their orchestrations.
I see.
Even if they change it just a little bit. So now what we do, we get many variations of the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's say you need to have your picture taken, right, for a magazine article. But instead of having one photographer do your picture, you have all the different outlets that need a photograph of you, do a painting of you. And each one of those outlets brings in a separate painter. So now you have all these different official images of you, but they're interpreted by the country or by the outlet that needs it.
Yeah, so it's like a different result every time.
It does, yeah, and it's kind of like it's interesting because and I like that creative process. I like to, say, okay, well, you guys orchestrate the music, but go ahead and do it like through your eyes, how you are actually hearing this music.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you'll hear the same piece of music, and the way they've written it out and orchestrated it, they're very different from each other. So you
Mm.
see the different reflections of the same material, but a different interpretation of it, which is very beautiful because like that's like sort of the best. You create something and here it is, whatever it is a diamond or a sculpture or a piece of food. What do you think of it? And this person tells you, well, for me, it reminds me of this and tastes like this. And this person, oh no, it completely tastes like this and reminds me of this. So you get these different perspectives of the same thing, and then they're highlighted because each one of them gets the opportunity to do it the way they would like. So
Nice.
I just find it very more creative.
So this takes me to the next question, and I'm sure that um, for this particular interview, we have a lot of listeners and viewers that are into classical music and maybe also play instruments. As I told you, a couple of my friends do that. So I don't get the chance, every or the opportunity every single day to talk with someone like yourself. So maybe you can, share some inspiration with us in terms of what your favorite composers. I come from a house that is, I told you that my dad used to listen every Friday to several CDs of classical music. So maybe you can, just tell us about it.
Well, my first experience of classical music that I remember, I think I was about 3.5 years old. My parents had a piano, but there was no piano lessons. We just had it. My mother, we had a recording of this Chopin piece. Chopin, it was Arthur Rubinstein, the great
Hmm.
Polish pianist, and the recording was of Chopin nocturnes. So I remember this piece. It was so I would listen to this over and over and over again, and I actually was able to teach myself on my parents' piano how to play it eventually. So I would just listen to this magical music. I didn't know. I mean, I was too young to understand where this came from. So I
Hmm.
eventually learned that this was the music from the early 19th century by a Polish and French composer. But all of his music was like this magical spell for me. So I
Hmm.
would listen to all of his music, his concertos, his ballads, his etudes, his nocturnes, his waltzes. That was like kind of my childhood, and I would imitate his music. And I would just learn, let's say, and then I would just start making more of it. And that's kind of probably how the so I had this musical language built into my fingers since I was a
Hmm.
child,
Hmm.
learning these composers like Chopin. From Chopin, that led me to Rachmaninoff's music. So then,
Hmm.
because his music is very difficult, so your hand has to be much bigger. So probably when I was about 9, I started adding his music uh, to my listening, and then listening to Brahms and Beethoven. And I was just listening to all this music and I would be able to imitate it on the piano. So if I can imitate it on the piano, physically, I could learn the musical language of how it physically feels to play this music and then to recreate it and then to make more of it. Because once you have like stuff I do here, like Bach. I can do so I can translate this physicality into different territories now because it's already in my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
So having the technique, learning the music because I loved it, learning the physicality of it, and then being able to translate it into different ways, like for my own imagination, was that was a transition of playing the piano into actually composing. But it was through learning the musical language of different composers. So
Mm-hmm.
those were like my first few batches. The composers that I loved as a little kid are exactly the same ones I love now. It hasn't changed. Like
This is
I don't really evolve. Like,
I can say the same about, the games that I play because obviously I play Heroes for now, I don't know, 25 years, and I played only a few installments. I played mainly the Heroes 3, 4, and some of 5 and 6. I saw my older brothers play Heroes too, but I don't evolve as well. There is so much out there in terms of what else is for us strategy players, as you said, smart players to play, but we still go back and we don't evolve in because in the end of the day, this package, it has everything. It has everything that we want. It's so random, each and every play, each and every map and scenario, that we still enjoy it because it could go
wow,
any other way.
it's like food. You know what? There's a million or billion different kinds of foods out there, but if you like a hamburger, you're probably going to eat hamburgers the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Maybe every night, but it's the same with pizza. Pizza's great, but and we know intellectually that many kinds of foods are great,
Yes, we do.
but we always love to come back to pizza or hot wings or spaghetti or whatever, whatever your culture is. So it's kind of the same thing with some music. Even the music that I loved as a little kid, I love it. I love this. So that's by Nina Rota for The Godfather,
Of
and he
course.
wrote 1972. So funny story about this. So I went to a very prestigious music conservatory. Very few people went there. It's a very small school in Philadelphia. Probably the most serious music school in the world, except for probably Moscow Conservatory. So
Hmm.
Curtis Institute, every year they only graduate 33 people from the school a year, and they only accept 33 students a year. This is in all the instruments, piano, composition, violin, flute, trombones. So it's a very small group. Um, so they have about 150 students there at any given time, a faculty of 120. It's in a mansion in Philadelphia, beautiful old 19th century mansion.
Oh,
No, if you get into the school, it's completely free. They pay for everything.
oh,
So
nice.
basically, the reason why they do that is because they're looking for the best musicians, not based on financial ability, or they want to take away any kind of barriers that would prevent this student from getting
Yeah.
the best education. So I went to school there. Leonard Bernstein went to school there. Nina Rota went to school there. A whole bunch of famous musicians.
Hmm.
Lang. As a student there, I was kind of told that soundtrack music is not very prestigious. Like they didn't even talk about it. That was not. When you go to Curtis, you're going to graduate, and then you're going to go right to Carnegie Hall, and
Right.
that is
So
the
Star
direct.
Trek was a taboo, let's say.
Soundtrack was very much taboo. Even nobody ever mentioned Nina Rota when I was a student there, even though he had won an Academy Award.
Hmm.
His name was never mentioned at the school as a aspiration. Leonard Bernstein, yes, he was, and Samuel Barber and Giancarlo Menotti, but not Nino Rota. So I always felt really, I never, that wasn't my pursuit with soundtracks because my college made it sound very bad. Like, that's not the way you want to go.
Yeah.
So it's funny that as it turns out, that ended up being my main career as a soundtrack composer. But because of the years of notoriety of this, so now the Curtis Institute has the top 100 graduates in the history of the school. Leonard Bernstein's number one.
Mhm.
Nina Rota comes in like the number 28 or something like that. So I'm coming in at number 22 now because of my gaming career. So I'm the only one in that list with a career in music based on
Don't be
games.
shy about it.
Now,
Don't be shy about it.
it's kind of interesting that the very thing that they were embarrassed about now it's part of their output.
Mhm. You know,
That was kind of funny.
times
It's kind of
change,
funny.
you know. They thought of it as the taboo, and now they say, okay, we have Mr. Paul Romero from a couple of
And
years ago,
actually,
and
between the two, Leonard Bernstein and Nina Rota, I actually like Nina Rota's music better than Leonard Bernstein. Even though Leonard Bernstein is great and very important, personally, I like Nina Rota's music better. So anyway, so that tune right there, it's always been one of my favorites since I was a little kid.
right. Um, a bit more about composing, and I wrote to myself about maybe you can, set up a few tips, beginner tips for guys who uh, pursue their composing career. But before that, I'm a very big, a very big cinema fan, and I'm getting moved by soundtracks. I forgot his name right now, but of course there is a very famous composer who worked with Spielberg, films for E.T. and John.
John Williams. Yeah, John
Exactly.
Williams.
So I don't know if you know this guy. His name is also from the US. His name is Rick Beato, and he has a very famous YouTube channel, and he talked about Williams being the best, music artist that ever lived, more than Michael Jackson or Elvis, etc., because his soundtracks were so moving. So, um, you know, for the guys and the girls who would want to become the next Williams or the next Paul Romero, etc., maybe you have a few beginner tips for them how to. And by the way, when you think about the answer, so we talked a bit earlier, you and me, about the fact that times have changed and now people go to nostalgia, but these days you have so many games to play, so many composers who want to begin the pursue and so on. So how can you go beyond the threshold? How can you, make the hop into this industry?
That's a good question. It's hard for me to give advice in that way because it kind of came to me. It was not something I pursued. It was sort of by accident, and then one project led to another. So in on all the 30 years, like 30 years, I guess I've been
Yeah,
doing this 30 years.
sounds
I've
like 30
never
years.
I've never went after a project. So it's so that's what's kind of weird. I've never had to really find a project. They just, I guess they found me. So I don't know how to advise that way because I can't. I'm not going to say just sit around and wait for an accident. Wait for somebody to ask you. As far as John Williams goes, the difference, like what John Williams and I have in common, is that we started classical training very, very young,
I
like
see.
very, very, very serious classical training. He's a classical musician. He's a classical pianist and a classical composer. He was able to take that into the world of cinema. I took mine into gaming music. But if you took away his cinema career and my gaming music, we would still be probably we would be working as regular classical musicians.
Mhm.
That's kind of, if you haven't had classical training, that's a difficult one because it's like trying to become an acrobat when you're 20. You
I see.
it's very hard. It's something that kind of has to be hardwired. I mean, in terms of the kind of music that I do or the kind of music that he does. It's not easy to jump in on really without that background. So when you look at how people play piano and how they learn the choreography, you know, these are kind of things you don't learn from a book. It's like you have to learn from somebody who knows the technique. It's like sports or anything. You really have to have hand-to-hand, teacher-to-pupil connections, and that's how we learn this kind of music. So John Williams has very similar training, not just going to a school classroom and listening to one professor. It's classical music is very much a one-on-one. You really need to work one-on-one with a great composer or with a great pianist to show you all of the intricacies of this. It's like scuba diving. Like you're seeing a world, like technically it's even hard to get below the water. But once you're down there, there's more things down there than there are up here. So you're not going to know that. You're going to have a guide or someone to show you and teach you what all of that world is.
Right.
So John Williams and I kind of, I don't think he pursued cinema from the very beginning. I think his dream was to be a classical conductor and pianist and a composer. And that was the same for my dreams as a kid. Then an opportunity came my way, in my 20s to do game music. And then so I took that opportunity and I ended up going through a doorway that was sort of by accident. It wasn't anything planned. So I just followed that, whatever opportunities came my way. And so the opportunities have been coming for 30 years. So it's not for me, it's not a pursuit. It's about, I get asked to do something and then I do it. And then usually before I finish one project, I'm usually asked to do another one. So I'm always working actually. So, which is good. So I don't really have the advice in terms of how to pursue work, except I know that John Williams, he did agree to work with a very young Steven Spielberg. I think Steven Spielberg was only like 21 when they first met. And so John Williams had the foresight to spot young talent and say, what? I'm gonna work with him, even though he's just got started. So I would say young composers. Number one, composing, you have to do it by volume, meaning that you don't become very good at composing unless you do a lot of it. And it would be very similar to let's say a heart surgeon. A heart surgeon is based on volume. He needs to do the procedures over and over and over and over again to become good at it. Like if you were having a heart surgery, you're not going to hire that heart surgeon who only does one heart surgery every year. That's the wrong surgeon to hire, because what if he forgot things? You need the ones that's doing it, who did 5 of them yesterday, who knows what he's doing. He's seen every kind of scenario. It's the same in music. You have to be a soundtrack composer, you have to know how to compose so many kinds of music. The only way to know how to compose so many kinds of music is to actually be composing a lot, whether you're getting paid for it or not. You just need to do it by volume. So any opportunity that you can get, meaning if you go to the colleges and find the young developers, find people online who need music, even if they can't pay you. Because a lot of these people I know, they're just building their platforms. They're dedicating 2, 3, 4 years of their life without pay, just hoping to get a good platform built. And they all need music. So you might get your money from somewhere else and another kind of job, but you need to compose. So whether you're getting paid for it or not, composing, you have to do it a lot. So that's very, very important. And I do meet a lot of people. It's like, well, they're not going to pay me for it, so why should I do it? It's like, well, you're the one who wants to be a composer, so you got to do it. And the only way to get good at composing or anything, sports or playing the piano, is you got to do it by volume. There's just no way around that, So I would say that would be the one thing I do know for sure. You got to compose a lot. And this other thing I get with young composers, sometimes somebody will send me a piece of music. Like, oh, but don't show it to anybody else. Like, okay, I'm not going to, but like, because I don't want anybody else to steal my ideas. So this is a common thing that people feel. They don't want somebody to steal their ideas. But generally speaking, I find people who are going into the originality of music and wanting to be a composer, they are already equipped with the confidence that they are unique and that they are that nobody can copy them anyway. So that fear, I can honestly say, composers are not running around looking to steal other people's ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just it kind of goes against the nature of being a creative in the first place. So I haven't seen that really happen too much, except for like a pop. Eric Carmen did a song called "All by Myself," and what it was a copy of Rachmaninoff's music, but he didn't write that on the publishing. So Rachmaninoff's family sued him, and they got a settlement for him not sharing the rights of the song with the Rachmaninoff estate. So
it was everywhere, huh? Come on.
But yeah, so anyway, but the reason why that's important is because musicians need to share with each other. They need just like, well, let me show you this idea, and then you get feedback. It's like, okay, but maybe if you add this or that, it's collaborative. You know, the arts are very collaborative. So to kind of try to keep everything secret until one day it's all going to be revealed. Because I get that a lot too. It's like, oh, I don't want to show my music to anybody until it's really great. Well, how long have you been working on it? For 5 years. It's like, okay, well, at some point you have to come out of your cave and share your music with people, and that's very important because then you're going to find out if your music has connective tissue and connective ability, because you might be pursuing a career where your music doesn't connect to anybody, and you're really going to be pursuing a career that's probably not going to happen because people are not connecting to it. And the only way to know if your music connects to people is people got to hear it. People, the only way they can hear it is that you put out a lot out and it's available. And it's like cooking. I'm not going to show anybody my recipes until my most expensive restaurant is open. It's like, well, how would you even know if it's going to be any good if you're not even showing people how you cook and share your food right now with people, and everybody's saying, "Oh my god, that was so delicious!" You gotta open up a restaurant. So withholding is not really a good idea.
Right. So we have the hardwire, layers by layers from early age. We'll talk about it in a second. Second thing is to go by volumes, as you said. And the third thing, and number three is don't be shy and don't, take it away from you. Just spread it out and get the feedback out of
yeah, exactly.
Else.
It should be very easy. People say, "Oh, you go to some game convention and you meet a developer, and you say, oh, I'm a composer. Well, where can I hear your music? Oh, you have to go to my website, and then you have to go to this and this and that, and click on this and this and that." It's like, okay, that takes me 10 minutes to go through all of this just to find some music. You need to find an easier way for your music to be very readily available. They should be able to Google your name, and poof, a piece of music pops up. Just listen to it. And you have to make it as simple as possible and as available as possible, because in the chance that you are pursuing work and you go to these gaming conventions or you go anywhere to meet people who are in the position to hire you, you got to make it as easy as possible for them to be able to hear your music right then and there. So so that's very, very important. Accessibility to your music, so people can gauge whether they can use you or not. So that's the most important thing is you cannot have any ego when you're as a composer. You can have ego if you're doing your own project, like your own opera or your own symphony. But as a collaborator with developers and producers, you have to check in your ego, because it's the only way to work. Otherwise, you're going to get hurt left and right. That people say, "Oh, this is not the right piece of music, or it's too slow, or it's too fast, or it's just not making me feel the right thing." And you have to be okay. You can't say, "Oh, that was my greatest masterpiece. I put my whole heart and soul into there, and now you're ripping it out of me." No, because that's not what they're trying to do. Number one, they're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to find a piece of music that works for this collaborative project, and it either works or it doesn't. So your job is there to help them to create the piece of music that works. And the only way to do that is just, you can't have any ego. You just have to be a collaborator and willing to take your technique and your ability to help them, give them what they need for their project.
Right. So number 4, guys, important. Just leave it outside the door.
That's really not an easy thing, honestly, for composers who were trained since they were little, that all of their music is they work so hard in it and so long. It'd be like a cook, I took a week to make this soup. I had to boil this and cook it then. And then you don't like my soup? That's the wrong kind of soup I was looking for. I was looking for a tomato soup. I wasn't looking for this very complicated soup. So I had a friend who almost had a nervous breakdown. He was pursuing soundtrack careers, and he was having to do all these pieces of music for some app, some phone app.
Okay.
And the producers were rejecting all of his little pieces. And these are pieces of music that only had like 3 sounds. Like, it wasn't like full orchestra.
Yeah.
And he was getting like half of them were being rejected, and he was starting to go into an anxiety attack, a panic attack.
Jeez.
That he wasn't doing a good job, that they hated him, that they were mad that he wasn't doing a good job. This is what's going on in his mind. And then he started hyperventilating, and then he goes, I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. I can't finish this project. Can you finish it for me? Well, sure. Because like, don't worry about it. But so I saw that with my own eyes of a friend who's highly trained, that he was about to go into an anxiety attack dealing with producers who don't really know anything about music. They know they need the music, but they're not trained in music. So they're not even having the language of telling you how to help you fix the music. They don't know how, because that's not their field. They just either like it or they don't. So he never worked in soundtracks again, because it was just so painful for him.
I see. So I have a nice question for you. The context is that I'm 41 years old. I have 2 kids, and many of my viewers.
41?
Yeah,
you're 41.
41.
Wow, I thought you're like 30 or 28 or 30.
No, I just shaved prior to our interview. That's it.
Well, whatever is working, like your moisturizer is good moisturizer.
Nah, come on. So I'm 41 years old with 2 kids, and many of my colleagues and friends, they also, 1999. So you were probably, I don't know, 10 years old or maybe something like that if you started playing Heroes 3. So many of us, we have kids, and many of us try to get them into, learning music or art, or maybe just, playing games or going to software. So I noticed that kids today, and I take this blame on myself as well because I'm a father, but they don't tend to have that much time to focus on their, studies, or learning to play the piano, or even, studying how to play the game Heroes 3, because it's quite complex and you need a lot of time and hours to understand how it goes and to understand the mechanism behind it. And we all share the same thought, which is 20 years ago, 40 years ago, when someone wanted to learn how to play chess, they would sit around for 5 hours a day and learn how to play chess and read books, etc. So honestly, I believe that the most precise example would be piano players, or professional players, etc. So maybe you can share with us some how it was for you as a kid growing up and studying and sitting by the piano so many hours, so many days. Is it, I mean, the struggle and the intensity of it? Maybe you can share some details with us, how it was for you as a kid to just sit nonstop by the piano.
I would say so, because my parents had a piano, but they weren't giving me lessons. I was just teaching myself. Probably the same way, like in the way that I was with the piano, I would say like little kids are just like this.
Yeah.
This was my piano was my the equivalent of the phone. I would just sit there for hours and hours and hours, and I liked it and got better at it. So it was a self self fulfilling cycle. The gains were so nice, and I'd work on something, and it's like, oh, it sounds really good. That's why. Oh, now it sounds even better. So there was this reward cycle that happened with me. So,
Mhm.
but I have ADD and ADHD. So if I like something, I'll do it for a very long period of time, and I lose my sense of time. But so I just learned how to play, just stay at the piano for hours and hours. And then my mother, when I started my lessons, my mother made me get up at 5 in the morning, and I had to practice 2 hours before going to school, which started at 8 o'clock. Come home from school like at 3, and I was on a swim team, so I had to swim for like from 4 to 6:30. Come home, have a quick dinner. I had to practice piano like another hour or two, and then do my homework. So I was very structured as a kid, like probably going to bed like 10:30, getting up at 5, and even now, so that's my life. I get up every day at 5, so it hasn't changed.
Yeah, the guys don't know, but you texted me at 5:55 a.m. today, right? In the morning.
Yeah, so it was always like that. I just kind of learned how to do something. Bottom line, I learned how to do something that I love, so it's easy for me to stay a long time at that. Um, so it's kind of weird. So I think it's very important for whatever it is you do in life, that you find something that you really like, because then you're going to spend a lot of time at it, and you'll end up getting, it's like the cycle. You like it so
Hmm.
much, and you keep learning and doing it, and you get better and better and better at it. So that's why even with young composers, in terms of the reward of composing is to just compose, whether you make any money at it or not. You just the benefits of the psychology are so nice and so pleasant. Like it's almost like, okay, if it's I get if I get money from composing, I spend it on my life. I spend it on my pursuits or my job. I use it for something else.
Hmm.
So, but I still compose. Like I love it. I love it. It in itself is its own reward. And if I
Right.
make some money, I just spend it, and I don't connect it to that. So and if nobody paid me any money, I'm sure I would still be composing. I mean, I'd be living under a bridge, but still composing.
Yeah. I would play on nothing, but I would imagine
Yeah,
that there's a keyboard over there,
as long as I had a
right?
little keyboard, a little piece of paper, I'd
Got
be
it.
happy.
So this is very nice. I thought about an episode, an interview with you to talk about heroes, but eventually we talked way more about music, which is a very big chunk of my life. So to conclude, and maybe to ask maybe one or two more questions about heroes. So it just happened to be that Heroes of Might and Magic 3 was the best installment, and everyone talks about it, which means that everyone talks about the music of Heroes 3, but no one talks about the music of Heroes 5 or 6 or maybe even 1. So does it get to you? I mean, do you get obnoxious about everyone going to you and asking for your autograph and talking about Heroes 3? Would you like us to talk more about other installments?
It's a really good question, because I always felt like the soundtracks that came after Heroes 3 got better, the music got
Mhm.
better, but the game got less. So it's
Yeah,
always I
I
and I
have.
and I
I'll just say that I have a very good friend, and we talked about he also has a YouTube channel, and he said that the Heroes of Might and Magic 4 music is even better. So
yeah.
your thoughts are in place. Please carry on.
But I'm not because of just psychologically, the reasons why I did these soundtracks or do them, it is because my job is to provide a sonic environment.
Hmm.
So if I know that I did my best job on that, it's good enough for me. It's not like, even if nobody hears it, I really appreciate now people listen to Heroes 3. And once in a while I do meet people who actually know music from Heroes 5 and 6, and then I'm shocked that they even know Hero 7, which was one of my favorites.
Mm.
It's one of those things like in life where it's that stupid word they call having gratitude. I'm just happy that anybody listens to anything of mine. And it'd be like if you have a bunch of children and you're just happy that somebody likes your daughter or your son. They don't have to like your whole family, but it just
Mm-hmm.
makes you happy that your son has a friend out there, or your daughter has a friend, or your mom has a friend, or your dad has a friend, or whatever. You're grateful. So I love all my music, honestly speaking, because I worked very hard at it, and I never put out any music that I would be embarrassed about because I was rushed or I'm humiliated when I listen to it again because it sounds awful. I'm glad I never worked like that. So
Mm-hmm.
as a result, whether people listen to it or not, I still have a sense of pride about it, and
Yes, you should.
I'm good with that. So and that's part of me I can't change. I just take a long time to write music, but once it's done, at least I feel like I did my very best.
Right.
Well, the one thing I've always thought about people who play Heroes of Might and Magic, universally, wherever I get to meet them, they're always smart. That's like the number one rule of the game. They're always highly intelligent. And number two, I would say 99% speak English. It doesn't matter what country, but they
Mm-hmm.
speak English. And number three, they all really like each other. Heroes, when you get like a concert hall of 3,000 people and they all play Heroes,
Yeah.
they all really get along beautifully. And it doesn't matter what country, like I've had this experience. They're so nice to each other. It's like, oh my God, I am so glad to be part of the Heroes community in that way, as opposed to being part of something else that I it's interesting. It's if you work in a field, whatever field you're in, do you like the people who enjoy
Mm,
that product?
I see.
Like for instance, just on the negative side, I always heard that Kim Kardashian
Okay.
does not like her fans.
Oh,
Like she would not hang out with her fans. So but they support her, they buy all her products, and they watch her on TV,
of
but
course.
she doesn't hang out with them. So the people that I've met from Heroes, I hang out with. So bottom line is, if anybody's listening to my music, I'm really glad that it's these people
I
listening.
see. I'll remember the Kim Kardashian example, honestly.
So
I'll ask you a question that I asked Yana, the head designer, back in the some other episode about the board game. So, do you know any? I wouldn't want to say celebrities, but do you know any famous people who, um, play Heroes of Might and Magic 3, or they know this brand, or
I have not met. I know celebrities, but I have never met a celebrity that I know has played Heroes. Not that I know of. Kind
Res-
of. Uh, Maybe there are some in Eastern Europe, but I haven't met any in the West.
and is it okay? So I'll take you to a follow-up question. Of course, all of us know that we have Heroes 3 players in Poland and Ukraine, Russia, of course, Israel, of course, as we know. But I haven't heard about many players from, North America, US,
Uh,
Canada, but maybe I'm wrong.
oh, like I'm very few, very few. This is funny. Like if I go to a party and people go, "Oh, so we heard you're a composer." It's like, yeah, I do. I write music. Well, did you write music for anything that we've ever heard of? Like, I don't know. Have I? Like, I don't know what you've heard of.
You know Beyonce? No, I'm just kidding.
I hate that question. Have you written anything that we have heard of?
This
It's like
sounds like an American question, by the way.
it is. It's like and actors and actresses get that all the time. Like,
Mhm.
oh, have you been in any movie that I've seen?
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I don't know. What movie have you seen? So usually when I get asked that question, well, so people probably most prominently is Heroes of Might and Magic. Nope, never heard of
Never
that.
heard of it. I get it. Okay, so you just
Call of Duty. I'm sorry, I didn't do Call of Duty or whatever.
yeah, Grand Theft Auto, etc.
But you know what's really interesting? Years ago, 20, probably 25 years ago, I had an agent, and her name
Okay,
was Nina. This is like 25 years ago. She was also representing, she had a composing agency. She
got
was
it.
representing a guy named Marco Beltrani. I don't know if you've ever heard of Marco Beltrani. Marco, at that time, was doing, she was trying to get him horror movies.
Okay,
And she was trying to get me, I don't know what she was trying to get me, but I was coming in to the agency as a game composer, and he was coming in as a horror composer. So I was always envious a little bit. It's like, oh my God, how come he gets to do movies and I'm doing computer games?
yeah,
Now that 25 more years have passed, and I look at, and he's really nice. He lives here in LA, but the opportunities that he's been given in his career have only been horror movies. Like, and they're good, they're famous, like the Nun 2,
hmm
uh, I forgot some bug that's in New York City who lives under the subways, some creature movie. So when you go back and you listen to all of his music, it has a horror. Uh, the overall feeling of his repertoire is sort of horrific,
hmm
meaning that it's not necessarily something you want to listen to because it works for these horror movies, but
yeah,
and I was thinking, wow, if I had my dream come true at that time, and maybe the agent started putting me in horror movies, I wouldn't have been able to do this kind of music. Looking back on it, so when I look back in the music, how it sounds, how the melodies are, I'm really happy. It like my life ended up going into the gaming world
yeah.
because it had it gone into maybe a cinema world and maybe I was stuck in one realm. Maybe I just would have been doing all kinds of music that was like these awful sounds that work great on a movie, but it's not necessarily
Yeah,
musical.
quite a contrast to be very precise because you gave us I believe that one of the few things that make Heroes of Mathematics 3 and other installments that popular is that people can enjoy each and every faction the other, some in some different ways. And you gave us music for each and every faction, so the variety is really huge.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, so like sometimes they always say that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Hmm
you just you just never know how your life will go. And now I get to do concerts and play with the orchestras, and it's classical music. It's my own music, but it was what I thought I wanted when I was a kid. I just wanted
Yeah.
to write classical music, play concerts on stage, play with orchestras, just have this beautiful kind of feeling. So I didn't never in a million years thought I was going to get it through computer games.
Right.
So but now it's full circle. So it's really beautiful. So that's why it's like whenever opportunity comes your way, like
Take it.
take it, take
Yeah.
it, and because you just never know, your life might have a whole better outcome than even what you planned. You know.
Well, we would love to see you in concert here in Israel if if
Oh
the
yeah,
opportunity
yeah.
would arise.
Yes, I do. I would love. I've always wanted to go to Israel, and
Mhm.
I have a nephew who used to live in Israel, and now he lives in Sinai in Egypt.
Okay. Yeah,
But he has an Israeli girlfriend.
got it. So
Yeah.
here you go. You just need one or half, reasons to come here and play. We would love to see that. But until then, I enjoyed this interview, very, very much. And you taught me
Thank you.
some new stuff about how the process goes and how to work with the producer with Rob King. And we talked about the other installments and really I believe that we could go and talk about few more hours about inspiration and classical music, etc. But in the meantime, thanks again, Mr. Paul Romero, or just Paul, my friend. Hope to, see you soon or talk soon yet again about music or, video games and anything else. So thanks again.
Thank you very, very much, Daniel.
This was great. And
by the way, I want you to know. So I live in it. So people in Israel, they know Sherman Oaks.
Okay.
Sherman Oaks is primarily a Jewish area of Los Angeles.
Okay.
Most of even though my family is Mexican and my husband is a white guy from Tennessee, we live on a street that, in fact, our whole area is, they call it the nickname is the Jewish Alps because we're in the mountains here. We're in down the road would be what they call the Hollywood Hills.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of this hills is Beverly Hills. These are not hills; these are it's the Santa Monica Mountains. But this side of this mountain where I live, the base of the valley, is called Sherman Oaks. It's primarily Jewish. We live like a half a mile from the University of Judaism, and also around the corner is the Skirball Center of Hebrewic history.
Mm-hmm.
So our whole neighborhood is there's a lot of Hasidic Jews.
Yeah,
we have a lot of temples. We have a lot of Ashkenazi Jews. We have a lot of Israelis here too.
Yeah,
that's why it was very important when October 7th happened that my friend Shaked, who was in the military, and he has two brothers in the military. He is living in California pursuing his composing career. He felt very helpless when it happened. He goes, I need to do something just for myself, for my soul, and I need to do something that connects people to music. And he didn't want to have an event that was angry or just
to show
he wanted to do it that uplifted and helped people get through it through music. So he asked me if we could have it at my house. So I go, yeah, of course. I love Israel and I understand what Hamas is and Hezbollah and all that stuff and the importance to eradicate that. So
we cherish it.
Because if Israelis don't do it, then who's going to do it? Like that's just nobody's going to do it. So anyway, we opened up the house. He brought in a lot of Israeli musicians, some Mexican musicians, American Jewish musicians.
Nice.
We had Lizzo's bodyguard at the front. We were in high alert because we didn't know what was going to happen because this is a very Jewish area, and my street where I live is a very, very Jewish oriented. So even the neighbors were nervous that we're having this benefit concert with a lot of people here. So it's funny, it all became very you couldn't get in unless you can prove that that was your name on the list with your ID and everything.
You have Lizzo's bodyguards. More than that,
it was huge. It was like this gigantic thing. It was huge. He was very serious about it with a gun and everything. And so it was very good. It was a beautiful event. Some people were crying during the songs and they said, this was a release because the things that happened on October 7th were so horrific. But to hear this music and we're all together in a very positive way, it was a way for people to kind of express the extreme emotions of that. And then during the evening, I have a family of raccoons that live like trees, and they all came out. They all came out during one of the saddest songs that somebody was playing on the guitar. Very sad songs, but the Tears of Israel. These family of raccoons came out and they started standing up like that to listen, and then everybody started laughing.
Oh, this is great! This is so great.
Such a magical moment that I was like during like this very serious, and then it just shows like the raccoons just show, hey, but life goes on, we got we focus on that too.
Honestly, we cherish these kind of events. So thank you again, Paul, and we send the love and peace to everyone here. And thanks again for your time. הפתעה מאוד נעימה, ממש לקראת סוף הראיון, כבר ממש נגמר לנו הזמן, אבל פול סיפר קצת על כל הקשור לשביעי לעשירי, והחיבור שלו לקהילה היהודית, זה היה באמת 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 מאוד מרגש, ולא מתוכנן, כמובן שלחתי לו שאלות מראש, ודיברנו על הנושאים שהסכמנו עליהם, אבל פתאום הוא בא וסיפר על זה בדיוק כשנגמר לנו הזמן, זה היה ממש ממש יפה ומרגש. עבורי זו הייתה זכות לראיין אותו, היה תענוג לשמוע מהאיש, מהמוח שיצר את הלחנים שאנחנו כל כך אוהבים, ואנחנו שומעים אותם כל הזמן, שנים על גבי שנים, כשאנחנו משחקים הירוז of Might and Magic. זהו, היה לי ממש כיף לעשות את הפרק הזה, אתם מוזמנים לראות תכנים נוספים, כאן יש את הערוצים הנוספים שלי, ואנחנו, חברים יקרים, גיבורים וגיבורות אהובים, נתראה בפרק הבא. יאללה ביי.